Hello, everybody.
Hi, Wendy. Hi,
Hi.
everyone.
Hey, folks. As you're
Hi.
joining, please say hi in the chat. We have a great crowd here speaking, and I bet we have a great crowd here in the audience as well. Yay. Hello, everybody.
Hi,
Nice to
everyone.
see you. I see great, great attendance from all over the place. So nice. Thank you so much. Cape Town, that's awesome. We're going to just give everyone a minute to say hi. Yay! The little emojis popping up. That makes me so happy. All right, let's get started. So I'm Wendy Zinger, and I'm a VP of Customer Success at Lambda Test, and it's just a delight to host this panel with such amazing and distinguished participants. And we're going to be talking about the changing role of quality engineering in the age of AI. And so I'll do a quick intro of each of our participants, and then we're just going to go into a lot of questions for them and discussion. So we'll start in no particular order. I probably should have made it in alphabetical order, and maybe by happenstance it is. So we've got Ben Douglas here, and he is the Senior QA Manager at Tripadvisor. He manages a QA team in multiple time zones. He's always loved computers, technology, and breaking things. And he's been at Tripadvisor for many years and is working with his team to automate across multiple platforms, including desktop, web, and native apps. And he's coming to this discussion on AI with the background of being in an enterprise that is exploring that. And we'll hear more. Gary Parker is working as a senior QA architect at the Betway Group, and he's responsible for QA architecture, tooling, frameworks, and processes. And he specializes in front-end web and mobile technologies with more than 10 years of experience in the QA industry across different domains, products, and environments. As well, he's often writing technical blogs and content just to keep up to date with the industry. And so you're going to all be the beneficiaries of that today. We also have Jamie Lees, who is the Senior Test Manager and Head of QA at the University of Central Lancashire. And with over 24 years in software testing, Jamie's got a proven track record of delivering quality outcomes across different business domains with many different processes, tools, and approaches. Outside of work, Jamie enjoys exercise, time with family, and camping. We also have Manjula VK here with 20 years of experience in the industry and a wide range of sectors, including insurance, finance, healthcare, and retail. And her journey includes roles as leading the digital experience QA team at Tiffany and Company. So I think we can all kind of feel a little jealous. And she's been also heading up testing programs at large consulting companies like Accenture and Capgemini. Currently, she spearheads the test automation team at Estee Lauder. And she's navigated the evolution from manual to automated testing and has led teams and really challenged the status quo in organizations to make everything more innovative and exciting. And we also have Shravani. Shravani Gurijala is Director of Mobile Applications at Align Technologies, and she's had a strong belief in the power of agile methodologies and leveraging them to gain a competitive edge in business. And she's got a passion for automation in mobile app development that's not just a professional stance, but a personal crusade because of her commitment to efficiency and innovation. And so I think with this, Shravani is bringing a really strong value on developer needs and empathy for making developers feel productive and be productive in their roles. So that is our set of illustrious speakers, and we have a number of questions that we're going to start to put to them. And I'm going to go ahead and kick off this first discussion topic, which is, so panel, how do you envision software development roles changing with AI integration in testing and development? And Shravani, I think I'll have you start on this one.
Hi, Wendy. Hi, everyone. Thanks for the great introduction. And nice to meet you guys, everyone. I know there is like industry leaders, experts in this space, and I would love to hear your thoughts, learn so many things. I mean, the question is very interesting, and also I find it like I want to be creative on this one. Um, in the like in the software engineering, I think we already see AI tools coming in the everyday job, as in for QA engineers in the tools they use. I think right now we have test automation tools, and then with Lambda test recently have seen is in predictive analysis on test automation script failures. I think what it mainly does is helping automation engineers quickly identify root cause, and it is providing insights into how they can resolve it. So I think AI is already making into space in on the everyday tools and making this job easier for automation engineers. And I think what I see in the future that could possibly happen is how shifting left in terms of the software engineering principles. How I can right now we have tools to see generate test cases based on acceptance criteria, generate UI test cases based on acceptance criteria, and with Copilot generating unit tests for the code developer. So I can think it is as in like, if you can do with development, which we naturally assume that would be the role of a developer, so then a developer role can more evolve into not only developer, but like also an as in validation engineer, like as in QA, and as in manual QA, like they will be beyond, writing QA test cases, and with this mundane tasks being taken by AI, the role definition might get creative. And like, they will get need to be creative to add in value add in if particular manual QA is spending time, how they can value add to the product. So I do see there is possibility of like converging definition of roles for QA and developers, and software like is not just about writing code. It could be together as in writing code and being validation into packaged into one role, and like, creative definition for like manual QA. So I think, I mean, it might look like for some people far fetched, but that's a possibility. I think what AI can bring into software space. I would love to hear what other opinions are, but that's what is my opinion on this.
Great, Shravani, and it's really great to hear you covered a lot of things here. First of all, hi everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. It's an honor to be part of this amazing few days of like conference and discussions. So thank you for having me. Adding on to what Shravani was talking about, I think it's already changing our lives, right? In many ways. And personally, for me, I'm somebody who absolutely dislike taking meeting notes, and it's something that I do not want to do, but I've had to do in the past. And with Teams Copilot these days, I don't have to do it, which is just so amazing. And the notes that Copilot provides me, it is so fantastic that it absolutely does, of course, better job than I can do, but also is very accurate. So all I have to do is do spot check for accuracy, and then I can focus my time on something that I like to do. So I think we are already seeing how AI could be used within our day to day lives, and it kind of aids us for doing things better in terms of development. I mean, of course, we know AI is smarter and it can do things a lot faster. We will see a lot more applications being developed much quicker. And what that would mean is that we will have a lot more testing to do, but also it takes us look testing from a different point of view. QA always has been, in some ways, a function of oversight, in my opinion. And I think that is just going to evolve where we are looking at the reliability of AI. We are looking at the accuracy of AI. Is this the right AI to begin with, right? So I see that also transforming into the world of testing. And of course, to what Shravani said, the roles converging and coming together, but then again, role of QA being more or less that oversight function, and then taking a look at the skill sets that we have. I mean, data models is not something that a QA tester or automation tester has always had to have. So we are looking at how we are evolving our skills from day to day point of view, And I think all of that, I think, is quite exciting. So it's hard to predict how it would change the roles, but it is definitely going to change our lives for good in terms of the new skills that we acquire and in terms of a new perspective from how we see development and testing. That's just the way I see it.
I do agree, Manjula. There are like great thought out, like thoroughly thought out inputs, probably maybe from your experience, but I do agree.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it's some of it we don't know. I attended a bunch of panels and presentations yesterday, and there were lots of good answers of what does it mean? How do you envision where we go? Does QA now have to test models instead of testing actual functional features that are coming out? There was a good demo of an AI. The product for QA was terrible, but the person demoing it had a good quote, which stuck with me, where someone said, "Wow, I'd hate to be, a young engineer coming out of college these days. Well, what are you going to do?" And he said, "Well, let me be clear. There's a difference between an engineer and a coder, right? I think that the evolution of AI, what it can supply for us, makes us more engineers. It forces us to think like engineers and not just coders. So I think it takes a lot of the requirements of, okay, I have to do this. Okay, IntelliJ has a good way to put this in, and same thing with, manual testing. So you're not just sitting there going in web page by web page. Oh, does this have this? Does this have this? You're more engineering the solutions instead of just coding and being on that lowest level there. So, I don't remember the presentation yesterday, but he did a good job of saying the manual tester turns into almost a micromanager of AI engineers. The coder engineer, the automation engineer turns into someone who is verifying and running and looking at results of what AI does. We're all QA engineers. You heard in my presentation, I like breaking things. I also have that pessimistic QA view, even though in life I'm an optimist. In QA, I don't believe anything that any developer tells me works or didn't break. I'm going to have that same pessimistic view against AI who's generating these things for me. So there's going to be a lot, and it's going to, we are going to have to go through and verify, make sure that the models are doing what they're supposed to be doing, make sure that when it says, oh yeah, that button that was there yesterday is a little bit different, but it's fine, it still does the same thing. We still have to go in and verify it. It might not be what the spec says it's supposed to be. It might be something that's broken.
I might just expand on that a tiny bit. I think the guys have covered the question pretty well, to be honest. I like the way Shravani has kind of talked about shift left and combining roles. I think over the past sort of decade or so, we've probably seen tech teams move to sort of more dev heavy delivery functions, and QA becoming more consultative. We've actually seen companies do that. They'll employ one person per test, and that makes the devs responsible for automation and testing their own code. I think AI is just probably going to push that a little bit further and make that a bit more accessible, make automation accessible to devs, and also make maybe more coding type work. I hate calling it coding, but more engineering type work available for automation or skilled automation engineers. So you might see more of a merge. Might see more pair programming. Again, Sravani's kind of covered that sort of stuff. But I think longer term, AI is just going to help us build more robust platforms. It'll help increase quality, increase speed. And we've seen some examples of this already where a user can literally get an AI solution to build something out of the box. So, a basic website or something like that. And that enables us to focus on maybe refinement, building different features. So there's lots of us to, lots of work still to go, but AI will probably help us build a bit more of a stable platform that we can work from.
Awesome answers. Thank you, everybody. And I know, Gary, you've been quiet, but I have a question that I have aimed for you, and so I'm going to go ask it first, which is what trends have you noticed in your organization? And if you can tell us too a little bit about what Betway does for those who don't know, what trends have you noticed in your organization with AI adoption, especially in processes or security policies, roles and responsibilities, or anything of that nature that that you've experienced?
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, thanks for letting me be a part of this conference. It's been great so far. And I'm really glad to hear everybody's opinions on these topics. So yeah, AI adoption, it's become much more of a organizational level movement. I think in the past it was something that, at least from what I've seen, it's only been kind of led in the technology department. It might be something that developers and QAs experiment with and try to implement. Very much everybody's involved. Everybody's on this kind of AI journey. And just overall, there's a lot more support. There's learning materials being provided. There's workshops going on. And everybody is involved, like I said, and we want everybody to have that foundational knowledge of what AI is and how it can improve our work. But yeah, on the topic of kind of roles and responsibilities, I don't feel it's changed very much, at least not at the moment. There's definitely an extension of what we're capable of doing with these AI tools, but the actual day-to-day job hasn't really changed. And yeah, I think one key learning experience I wanted to share is that don't overuse AI. You don't have to use it for everything. I've seen people write whole emails with AI and not proofread at all, and that's ended terribly. Same with creating documentation and stuff like that. Just make sure you're reviewing what the AI is generating for you, do the proofreading and editing before you're sharing this kind of content. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to add on to that one, right? I think I totally agree with like don't overdo it. But I think in terms of adoption of AI become as in like an organization or like an industry movement, like what are all the ways it can help us, or like either it is developer productivity or it is simply became as an human productivity, like use the AI for everything. I think, but like with caution. So for an organization, I think we have Copilot, which is greatly helping the team. And meetings became so easy to handle. So we have Copilot that helps us articulate action items, like, summarize some, like, meeting notes. And I think what I'm also kind of using is like, over a week, if I have like kind of missed or like, being a manager, I think some like, right, how many emails we have to swim through to get something out of it, right? Yes, AI can help me to summarize, hey, what are the action items for me to focus on? Like, that kind of productivity hacks. It's greatly helping, leaders, managers, where we have to primarily rely on email communication or like Teams. So I think in terms of productivity, it is helping an extent. I don't think right now we are in a phase where it is already changing the responsibility scape, as in, oh, the roles are overlapping already. I don't think we are there yet. So it's in terms of still as in productivity space or like some hacks tools. And I think one additional thing is how we can use AI as in for visualization. So far, so many tools what we have is in text based. And I think if we could, I mean, we are slowly moving into space as in like, how can we create better visualizations, data representation. This is a space what can help the developers present an idea better or like reach more audience. I mean, this is a where like in a world where we are living in, communication is key with asynchronous teams, global teams, where we can reach out to multiple audience or like people, developer leadership. So AI with like for visualization can be one good step in terms of like, creating better content. I'm sorry, I'm like I'm kind of talking Instagram words, but I think it's like where better communication skills. I think that is where it is definitely helping the developers. So yeah.
I'd like to add my experience, if I may, throw my hat in the ring on this one too. So I think in terms of AI adoption of specific AI tools, I'd say it's been slow at the university I work for. I think there's probably a couple of reasons for it. I think primarily we're waiting to see what the fuss is about. Personally, I've been a little underwhelmed by the AI solutions that I've seen in the testing domain. And I do see quite a lot of them. I do respond to those LinkedIn emails that you get in your inbox. So I do try and learn more about what companies are doing to help us in this in testing. Is it going to be something that's going to be a game changer for us? If it ends up being something that just helps us find flaky locators, well, it's not going to revamp our world. So there's an element of patience. I think we need to kind of let these things develop before we start really buying into them. I think secondly, it's also kind of hard to classify AI adoption because some of the components, and again, I think Shravani mentioned it earlier, they're kind of being wrapped into the things that you just use daily. So if you do a search on Bing, for example, you automatically get an AI response as well as the results that you'd kind of searched for. And I think we'll just start to see more of that, the tools that we've already bought, the stuff that you're already using, Microsoft, whatever it is you use, you're just going to get more elements of AI built into those things. In terms of roles and responsibilities, I'm similar to Gary. I don't see a massive impact on us at the moment. Of course, as AI solutions kind of improve, we'll naturally want to use them because it will save us time, money, it'll increase speed, quality, where it's relevant to your role. But I think we'll also start to see these things pop up on people's CVs. We might even start to see things in job specs, the roles that you're going to apply for. Interestingly, I mean, there's another discussion to be had around this, but from a recruitment perspective, I've recruited for a couple of roles this year. It's really blatantly obvious that people are using chatbots more and more to answer questions on application forms. For me, it's a strange one because people are trying to stand out, but in trying to stand out, you end up looking the same. So if I had any advice on that, it would be don't leave the fate of the role that you really want to work on in the hands of a chatbot. Fill these things in, yourself, and use your own language, put yourself in the application form, not a chatbot's answer, please.
Awesome. Fantastic. And we have some really good questions in the chat. So I just may shake up some of the plans we had laid here. We had some questions that the panel's already seen before, but I'm going to go ahead with the next one, which is in recent times, the time to automate your tests has shortened, and yet there are still challenges. What are those challenges that you're still facing? And I think Manjula, you had spoken, you had some thoughts on this one, so I'm going to call on you first.
Yeah, a great question, Wendy. And then I think and when we say recent times, I have to say, beginning from the back from a career, it's always been a challenge, right? I mean, QA has always been shortchanged when on time, and that is something that always has been there since we can remember. And I can think of the various conversations that I've had at various times of my career with project managers or business stakeholders to say how important this is to have the testing coverage done, but the live date never changes. The development cycle creeps into testing, and there you plan for pretty good coverage with few weeks or few days of testing. You're left with the number of days or hours, and that has been always the case. And I think it's just become more and more as a larger challenge with continuous testing, right? With CI/CD being there and faster dev cycles, there is always releases that is coming out constantly, and there is a demand for testing it now. And it's just like, you never can catch up with that. And as much as we have always been talking about increasing the cover of automation or having QA integrate into product and engineering teams, the reality is that many of our organizations, we are still not there. So that, I think, is an opportunity that we have that comes with the challenge. And with AI being here, AI is smarter, AI is quicker. We have to keep up with testing more applications in shorter time. It is the time for us to take some of these challenges in terms of like the end of the day, we are compromising quality when it comes to a shorter life cycle. You do not get to test right with the inadequate requirements, or requirements changing, or not having a good environment to test. So these things continues to be a challenge, regardless how, what, or why things are changing in the continuous delivery world. So taking these challenges, I take it as opportunities to take it back to the C-suite and leadership to say, this is something that why we need to have more automation coverage. This is why we need to have QA be at the forefront and not at the tail end, right? QA needs to have a voice. And I've heard this in some other conference where we're talking about chief quality officer. Quality needs to have that voice. So I think the challenge will continue to be here, and it will be larger. But I think the opportunity is in turning those challenges into taking these recommendations back and how we can amplify the voice of QA better.
Awesome, awesome. And the next question, I think, Gary, you might take this one. But maybe before we go there, anybody have anything to add about, some of the current challenges, even with test time and automation time being shorter? Any takers on that? Anything to add?
I might just add a couple of things. So I think there's probably two types of problems I see in here. They're the kind of technical problems. So things like automating capture, data quality, that would still see issues with those sorts of things. But the other major thing I think that AI might help with is the time to actually write the code to automate a test. I think that's probably a problem that AI can really help with. And even now, you might go to Stack Overflow to find an answer to something, when actually AI might be that tool that we go to in future. Or if there is a different tool that we're using, maybe AI will help us automatically fix that code for us. Maybe it will just work out what we're trying to do. So I think that might be an area where we might see some growth.
Yeah. And I mean, I think one of the things that's interesting is, AI is going to save time, it's going to save resources. As that happens, what are some of the other areas? And this is sort of a blend with a question that's coming up a lot here in the chat, is what are the areas of skills that QA engineers should be focused on? But also, this is more about organizationally. How are organizations going to maximize the value in perhaps having better tools, and now focusing instead on other parts of the process that are challenged? And I think you touched on them, Anjula. Gary, you had earlier when we spoke, you had some thoughts on that one. Don't forget to unmute. There you go.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is kind of back to basics. Like, we have a lot of this free time now, extra time. And we're getting to the stage where we can generate test cases faster. We can generate test code faster. And we just need to focus on the quality of the actual tests and test cases. I think that's some of the comments in the chat as well. And yeah, we want these tests to be atomic. We want them to execute as they can, whilst also providing value. We just want this feedback loop to be as quick as it can be. And yeah, in my organization, time just reviewing existing test suites, removing tests which aren't providing value. And I think a lot of the time, deleting a test is more important than adding a test. And yeah, that's where I kind of touch on that point of going back to basics and seeing what are you actually writing, what are you trying to achieve. But also, yeah, we're spending a lot of time on monitoring and visualization of test suites. So trying to observe trends and actively make improvements. And we're trying to set SLAs across the department. So monitoring the metrics of quality, making sure we're not regressing or taking steps backwards. Sometimes it can be very easy to kind of get caught up in your day-to-day of just test, write automation, release, and you don't realize that suddenly your test suite is taking 5 minutes longer than it did 6 months ago. So yeah, I think just having this overview of where quality is going in your team is really important.
Yeah, I mean, I think from my perspective, so I kind of answered this question, I guess, from a theoretical standpoint. So if AI solutions help save us time, what are we going to use that time for? And I guess, I don't know about you, but there's never a shortage of work. It's more of a shortage of resource. I mean, that's the main challenge for us. You know, we've got a big pipeline of work. It's just a case of trying to prioritize and work our way through it. So where we're looking at saving time because of AI, I'd say we'd gain the ability to spend more of that time on future enhancements, more bug fixes, more, you know, better automation, more project work. We'll just probably end up spending less time on executing that piece of work for the projects that we work on. In terms of quality, you know, you'd hope that some companies, it's probably contextual this, but you'd hope that some companies try to give some of that time back to staff so that we can look at improvement or upskilling. But it's obviously specific to the company you're working for, the priorities that you have. But of course, if you level your people up, you then they're able to provide a bit more value to the business in terms of what they can bring. So yeah, those are my thoughts on that.
Love it. I have a question that's a little different from the ones that we've asked before, which is, you know, a little more about AI itself and its own nature. And AI could have biases. It may, or it's likely to, in fact. What do you do to first understand and then address the biases that are in the current AI models? And Jamie, I'm going to just go right back to you because you had some initial thoughts, and then we'll maybe have Ben speak up on that one too.
Yeah. So my kind of answer on this really comes from the perspective of using AI models, not testing AI solutions. So bias in AI models is all about the experiential data that it's been fed. So theoretically, if you understand that data, you're more likely to understand where the bias is present. Let's face it, it's pretty unlikely you're going to be able to do that. So you may see sort of chatbots making sweeping generalizations about things like gender and race, and there's been some good examples publicized of that. So I think your assumption has to be that whatever you see is likely to contain bias, and you have to understand, how do I spot it and how do I handle it? And the answer is essentially use your brain. You know, you've got to question the things that you see to kind of build up a profile and to form your own opinions, really. You need to balance those opinions against colleagues, against people you respect, and your own gut feeling. What I would say as well is that bias is not new. You face bias right now. In fact, listening to me, you're hearing my thoughts and opinions, and I might not be right. So the point is that you're probably more used to seeing bias than you think. So question the things that don't look or sound right, like you would now. And the answer is in knowledge. So seek to learn more to form your opinion. AI alone is not going to be enough.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's a lot of, you know, one of the things Tripadvisor did over this past year is Gen AI trips. But what was the data based on, right? You know, all of this Gen AI products that are out there now are all backed by data. That data has been there for years. Who's collected the data? Who did they ask? It's everywhere, and it's stupid hard to test. You know, Jamie makes a good point. It's there now. It's just that it's a bot that's creating it. It's an artificial intelligence that's creating it. And you might not get the same answer. In fact, you won't get the same answer every time. I agree with Jamie that it is in everything. Nobody has data that is pure and unbiased. I think the same thing can be said about hallucinations by AI. You're always going to have weird answers. Testing for that is just as hard as biases. You can easily teach a bot that you can, there are big game animals in a national reserve. You can't hunt there. It doesn't know that unless you've also pumped in data from other spots. So depends on the data, where it comes from, but you always have to assume that it's there. As a tester and as a tester of AI, you have to put on a different sort of hat. And the question comes up of, well, what do we have to learn? What do we have to do that's different? Like how do we enhance our skills? I think some of it is you're testing a product still, but you're also, I think it came up of who tests, who keeps track of the artificial intelligence. And for now, that's us. So I get back to my earlier comment where I don't trust anything that the thing sends back to me. I make sure that I go through it. I'll ask the same question several times to make sure, A, that it's giving me something correct, and B, it's not telling me to go big game hunting in Yellowstone National Park. There's several things in that area. So for now, we don't have AI testing AI. We're still going to be there having to double check that my biases aren't in it. The coder's biases aren't in it. The data, if you know where it comes from, the data's biases aren't in it.
Brilliant. Awesome. So I'm scrolling through the questions and the chat, and I feel like the questions, many of them are centering around skills and the future for this profession. And I think our last question, we had two that sort of really encompass that. So I think what I'll do is just fold those into one, and we'll just do a roundtable. Everybody, please, speak up and share your thoughts and speak to each other. So the two kinds of the questions that we want to, I think, wrap with, and then we'll see if we have time to take a few specific ones, are, and I'm going to ask both of these together. As a QA leader, what skills and competencies should testers and developers focus on improving? And what tips do you have for software development and testing teams navigating the future of quality engineering? So that's a really big question. So if you were, if you, as with you as a leader, thinking about your team and folks that you want to encourage to come into this industry and this area, let's help our audience by giving them some of your thoughts. And I'm just going to go around as I see you. So I'm going to start with you, Manjula.
Sure, Wendy. Thank you. I will just start with, the no-brainer, which is staying relevant, right? We've talked about it many times. It is always important to stay relevant with what is going on around us, not just the technology, but also the industry, but also particularly what is going on within your company. How is your business doing? What are the trends? All of these things is something that we have been doing, but I think in the age of AI, it is even more relevant to know how AI is working. What is AI, right? So all of these things comes into play. Along with that, I would have to say critical thinking. I know it can be a buzzword, but end of the day, critical thinking is so relevant in the age of AI. You have to question what's around you. Like, Ben was talking about, you always have to stay curious, question why things are done the way it is, how it is done, right? And look at it from the point of view of like solving problems and how you communicate effectively, because effective communication, as we all know, especially when we have to relay a message about the product or the quality, it is just so important to have that message delivered right. So that's an absolutely a good skill that I always encourage my teams to improve as well. Along with that comes inward looking. We've talked about biases. We all have biases. I'm guilty of spending so much time in testing applications, looking at a piece of code to see what problems there are, what issues there are. But it's so very rare that we look inwards. We don't always critique about the work that we do. How do we approach testing? How could we do that different? How could certain pieces of technology help? How could AI help? How could we change tools? So that's something that I would just always encourage, and I need to do a better job at that myself. But I would just say it's an amazing skill to keep thinking about. And last but not the least, I would just say never underestimate the power of human connections and building trust. And the reason that we are here is because of that, right? I can think of several conversations that I've had with my business stakeholders in terms of like giving recommendations on why something should not be deployed. And they have listened. And they have listened because they had the trust in us to provide the right recommendations for the business. And how did that come? It came by building that trust, building that credibility. So that is, it's a game changer, and no AI, no technology can replace that. So that is something that I always remind myself and my teams to say, you cannot replace that skill set. And that's something that we always continue to remember and keep working on, just like what we are doing today in this conference.
Fabulous. I'm going around. So Jamie, I see you next to Manjula. I'm not sure if everybody sees everyone in the same order.
Right. Yeah. No worries.
Okay. So we're going to go Jamie and then Ben and then Gary and then Shravani to close us off. Okay.
Cool. So I'm going to be selfish and answer this question for test professionals, really. What I would say, and Gary talked about it earlier in terms of focus on the basics. AI is not the only kid on the block. There are lots of other things, more kind of bread and butter things that you'll need ahead of learning anything about AI. So I think what I would say is I still see a lack of people that I might deem a more sort of technical tester, somebody who is comfortable with SQL queries, comfortable with JavaScript or some automation principles, and strong understanding of kind of test principles as a whole. I would say focus on learning what you want to do. You know, if you enjoy what you're learning, then it's more likely to stick. Practice your new skills. I've been learning Italian for 3 years now, but because I don't have any friends that speak Italian, it's taken me longer to be fluent because I can't practice. But ask yourself the question, where do you see the future, and answer it yourself. You know, form an opinion of where you think your skills need to be within the next 5-10 years, and set yourself a basic plan. There are so many resources now, the Test Automation University, the Lambda Test website, where you can go onto different courses where you can play along and learn by doing. I would encourage people to do that, and I'd be more than happy to help people. So if you get in touch on LinkedIn and things like that, more than happy to help people with things like that.
I would add that quality is still quality. A lot of people get stuck in, well, I'm not going to be able to verify this web page. You still have a responsibility to test your application as a whole and prove that it works, whether that's reviewing AI results, whether that's manually going in and saying, okay, thank you for doing all the dumb regression work that it was going to take me all day to do. Now I have time to go in and feel like a real user to see what it's like. So there's still that, you know, for manual testing, I know that universities have it now. When I went to school, there was no such thing as learning how to become a manual tester. It was do you have the mindset to break things and prove that it's broken? So I think in that regard, yeah, AI is going to take some of that away, but you still have to, you still have to verify it. You still have to make sure that it's right. You know, in that regard. Otherwise, everybody else has made good points. You know, AI is in its infancy. We don't know what it's going to be like in a few years. We don't know what it's going to be like in a month. So there's every chance that tools can come out that can change all of our answers here and all the answers you heard yesterday and today and all the other presentations. So as I mentioned earlier, be a good QA engineer. Continue as was mentioned, your critical thinking skills. Think outside the box. Think of quality as a whole. Think of tooling. You're still going to need to manage these systems. You're still going to need to make sure that the app and the setup is the way that it should be.
Cool. Yeah, I think I'm going to echo a few of the points that Jamie and Ben have just made. So when I first started, like as a manual tester, I got very caught up in the fact that I had to learn C# or I had to learn Selenium, and I was really junior. And like Jamie said, you learn by doing. That's much more important than trying to do foundation course, trying to get yourself to a point where you feel you're ready. Just get involved, build things, build automation. You don't need to wait for someone to tell you. And yeah, I think as Ben said as well, there's so much resources out there now. None of that was here when we kind of like 5 to 10 years ago. And just kind of step outside your organization and your comfort zone. You've got so many talented people around you in this industry. Get opinions and insights from other people. Get a wider perspective in your own bubble. And yeah, try to form your own opinion on things. Like, you don't need to take my word for it or someone else's word for it. Go out, see what's out there, build things, learn, and just be clear on why you're doing it before you look at how to do it. Yeah.
Thanks, Harry. I'll add like what I mean. Yeah, I think in my opinion, for Dev and QA, they need to master both like some of the traditional skills and some of the new skills. Like traditional, I think even today we expect the developers to understand the software engineering principles, validation principles, everything. I think there is more need for it to understand end-to-end software engineering is in a whole. We have bits and pieces of AI in everyday tools. Like Manjula was saying that, oh, we have automation time is faster, but there are other problems still becoming challenges, lack of clarity in requirements, environment availability. I think even today, if you have AI tools to resolve these issues in bits and pieces, there is engineers who need to the solution end to end. Like, for a software delivery, the entire software cycle, even if you automate everything, someone need to see. So like the software engineer becomes to fully, like the need right now is to digest, learn these traditional principles, and also learn how AI is becoming part of their everyday activity. When AI is generating tests for you, maintaining an environment for you, like what are you going to do? So you have to look at the integration of this system in the cycle and how is it delivering. So I think for developers, I would say fully digest like software engineering principles and learn the new AI skills. For QA, I do think that I think it's the same format. Please do get into coding. I don't think there is they can stay. I mean, like in terms of like learn some basics of coding. You would never be able to stay hands off of like without coding in software engineering space. As in, I don't think there will be like an only manual QA, as in writing tests or only running tests. That rule, that repetitive task will be done by AI. So become like an end user representation of end user. I think that would be a better perspective of like what like what are you validating? I'm validating as an end user. That is more value add rather than Ben was saying stupid regression. I hate it. So yes, that's an awesome opportunity for you to leave the repetitive tasks to AI and get creative in terms of redefining what is the role and what value add you can be when you see beyond these repetitive tasks. I mean, that would be my input for engineers, like who's just coming out of college or like anyone who is staying in this profession. Yeah.
Yeah. This has been just a joy and a delight. I hope that everyone who's attended has gotten some good ideas about how to stay grounded, how to look forward, And I love everything that's been said. Thank you all so much, Manjula, Jamie, Ben, Shravani, and Gary. You guys have been terrific together and each individually. And so I want to thank you so much. We're going to close. I hope we addressed the questions in oblique ways together with them being asked. And I think if you go to your next, I believe next is a break. So take a little break. And then make sure if you want to share this with your friends, peers, you will have the recording afterwards. And also consider interacting with some of our sponsors and all of the different partners that are having booths today. So that's all for us. Thank you all. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Andy. I've
you.
really
Great chat.
enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You
Bye bye,
guys.
everybody.
Bye bye.